Welcome, my name is Tom Bingham, and I would like to share with you a new fault tree software program that I've been writing to get your input. Let's go ahead and get started by running the program. This particular session is going to be all about just building and saving fault trees, but maybe from a little bit different perspective than you're used to. Here is how the screen initially comes up. It tells you what your default directory is in your folder, and it brings you up with a brand new file it just created. I'm going to slide this window over just a bit just so I can see the fault tree that I'm trying to create. Okay, so let's take a look at this development of the software and start with the top of a tree. Now, the top of a tree represents something you really don't want to happen. We're going to imagine this to be landing gear failure on an airplane, something you just don't want to have happen at all. So if I click the top, it highlights it, and it allows me to edit the attributes of that particular node. The child nodes feed directly into it, and they represent conditions that could cause failure to the top. You can see over here that Dr. Esary called them G6, G7, and G8. So let's do the same thing. I'm going to type in G6 and a space. I could also use a tab, G7 and G8. As soon as I move my cursor away from this edit window and enter into the display window, it updates what this fault tree will look like so far. And so let's go ahead and click G6, means we've activated it. I can type W1 and top 1. Now, if I even so much as nudge this mouse, it will fill in the fault tree. And I can click G7 and type W2 and top 2, and finally move to G8 and fill in W3 and top 3. Now, you'll notice right away that this skeleton fault tree doesn't have any what are called gate symbols to it. So we want to add that. At the very top, we have what's called an OR gate. That means if any of these particular gates fail, then so will top. It only takes one of them. So to tell my new fault tree that this is supposed to be an OR condition, I come down and click OR, and there we go. We get the OR gate symbol that appears. Similarly, I could make G6, G7, and G8 AND gates, as you can see to the right. That's what they're supposed to be. So I could, as one way of doing that, just click G6 and click AND. I can click G7 and go back and click AND again. And I can click G8 and click AND one more time. So now I have the top 3 levels of this fault tree that are almost complete, except I have these symbols W1, W2, and W3. We'll go into what that means later, but those are called houses. They're actually switches, but if I click them and leave them all highlighted, then when I click house, they appear at once. So it allows me to have fewer keystrokes. And that is enough for the top of the tree. So one might want to save it, but you don't really need to. If I get out of the program altogether by hitting this red key and then rerun it again, you'll notice it comes back to right where it was, and I have it as if I hadn't got out of the program at all. So this has got an autosave feature and keeps track of where you were. So now I would like to create, again, I need to slide this back so I can see my screen. Now I would like to create the structure for this top 1 branch, top 2 branch, which is a little bigger, and top 3 branch. So by clicking top 1 and checking out what's under there, I need to add M and G1 as gates that feed it. So I'll type M and G1. Coming over to top 2, I need to create F, G2, and G3. I'll even leave my mouse where it is just to make a point. So if I type F and G2 and G3 separated by spaces and then move back in here, again, it keeps track of where it was. So it really doesn't matter where your mouse is. It keeps track of what is highlighted and the input node. So G2 has M and L below it. So we'll put in M and L. And we have G3, which has H and G4. So I will type H and G4. And finally, G4, clicking G4, we'll have M and T. Now don't worry too much about what all those mnemonics mean. They represent some kind of event that's occurring. Finally, top 3 will have built into it G5 and G3. And we've used G3 before. Notice G3 is over here. If I click it, it will appear in 2 places. It doesn't matter how I click it. I click G6, I could put G3 over here, and it appears 2 places. We'll talk about that in a bit. So G5 now has M and F feeding into it, so I'll type M and F, and that now completes the structure of the fault tree. Doesn't quite look the way that Dr. Esary left it for us, but we can fix that pretty easily. Noticing that top 1, top 2, and top 3 are all gates, but the first one's an AND gate. So I can click top 1 and tell it it's an AND gate, click both top 2 and top 3, and tell Armor that it is not an AND gate, it's an OR gate. So what else have we got? Well, we've got G2, we can see that's an AND gate, with G3 is an AND gate, and G5 are AND gates. Well, if I go G2, and I go G3, and I go G5, notice the other G3 shows up automatically. Now we will make these all AND gates, so we'll click the AND key. And finally, we end up with all of these events at the bottom, which are going to be called basic events. They will assume to fail with a known failure rate using an exponential distribution. So let's click each one of those. Now I'm holding the control key down, clicking the M. We have the T, we have H, we have L, and is there anything else? It looks like that's all of them. And I want to make them all what are called basic events, which means they fail according to the exponential distribution. Next time we are going to re-input this tree by imagining that 3 of the branches come from a different source than the main branch. So we'll see how you do that then.